Take a moment and imagine that you're next to me early one morning driving out to the farm. And we're passing the familiar final corner. We're going over the gravel drive. And then we notice that something is off. And the proud sunflowers and palm-like kale, the new tomatoes and baby greens are gone. And just in their place is nothing but tiny little, slowly melting pellets of ice. And as the weight of reality settled in, I stood motionless. Just 63 days into farming, I was beat, and I was ready to quit. I'll never forget that day. It was June 20th, 2012. Today is April 1st, 2016. And I'm proud to say that I'm still farming. I didn't give up that day. And I didn't give up because I know the value of what my farm means to my community. Economically, farms like mine, according to a recent University of Minnesota extension report, contribute 60% more of our economic output into the local economy than larger farms. Or socially, produce healthy, fresh food. Or environmentally, and farmers like me know that this Aldo Leopold quote is true. That land is a community is a basic concept of ecology. But that land is to be loved and respected is an extension of ethics. And so when I look at our food system today, I do not see a bright future. I see a landscape that is devastated, but not in lost crops, in lost farmers. Between 2007 and 2012, according to the USDA's agricultural census, we lost 95,000 farmers in America. And we only gained 1,300, that little bit at the top of the screen, under the age of 35. And so what this represents is a fundamental hemorrhaging of the lifeblood of our food system. Without farmers, there is no food system. And unfortunately, it doesn't just end there. Farmers we have left are old, like my grandpa. The average age of a farmer in America is 58.3. And 33% of farmers in America are older than 65, like my grandpa. And partially because we have fewer farmers and partially because we're older, a significant amount of farmland, 10%, is going to be changing hands between 2012 and 2017. Again, USDA's agricultural census. And what that means, 10% of farmland might not seem like a lot to you, but let me put it to you this way. 10% of American farmland is equal to Denali National Park, Death Valley National Park, and Yosemite National Parks combined times 10. It's 91.5 million acres of farmland is changing hands. And so what these trends all kind of add up to is a further, not only is the individual loss of each farmer tragic for that farm and their family, but it's difficult on our communities as well. So in our rural communities, for example, when it only takes one farmer to farm an entire county, what do the rest of the farmers who used to farm in that county do, and the businesses that supported them? Many of them must leave. And so that means schools close and grocery stores like the one behind me close and post offices close. And we end up in rural America with a poverty rate of 19%. Again, USDA statistics. That's 1 in 5 rural Americans live in poverty. But it's not just tough on our rural neighbors, it's difficult in our urban communities as well. What this concentrated food system we have, it creates a select handful of commodities. And what that means is in grocery stores, foods made with those commodities are cheaper. So chips and soda are cheaper than things that we know are healthier, fresh vegetables, for example. And that leads to public health outcomes like in 2012, according to the CDC, 2012, diabetes cost America $245 billion in just 1 year. And so what we understand now is that what we do and how we farm also affects not just our personal health, but public health. And so moving on from there, it also affects the planet's health. Many of us might be familiar with the dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico caused by runoff, not just from egg fields, but also from us here in the city. But it also, when we continue to concentrate, we're looking and continuing to risk the very healthy soil, clean air, and clean water that is necessary to not just produce the food that we're growing, but to maintain biological life on our planet. And so then finally, economically. Now this is where proponents will say this is the most economically efficient way to produce food. But the thing is, we're already highly concentrated. In 2012 in America, 6% of farmers produced 66% of our agricultural output. And so what that means is that one pathogen or one pest, 1 or 2 degree change in temperatures, or one act of bioterrorism, and our agricultural economy has a huge challenge on its hands, and that will affect our overall economy. And it will affect the question of what's for dinner. Will be much more difficult to answer. And so these trends are scary, and I hope I didn't scare you too much, but I still have hope. It's about waking up that morning and going to the farm and seeing such devastation. But then the next morning, going out and planting a new seed and a new plant and a whole new start gives me some great perspective on this issue. And I think we can gain some nice perspective if we think about a similar movement. So if we're part of the food movement, the sustainability movement. 60 years ago, sustainability was about planting a tree in your backyard. And today we have renewable energy, and it's part of the State of the Union, and it's part of the largest international agreements. And so the question is, when was the last time you heard a food issue discussed in a presidential debate? And so where we're at now as a food system are co-ops and CSAs and farmers markets and certified organic. And that's been taking a lot of people, a lot of time, and a lot of work to get us to where we are. But what I'm asking us to think about tonight is what's next? What are the big ideas that are going to confront the grand challenges that we're facing? And for me, something that we must address is this loss of farmers. We need a big idea to reverse that loss. And for me, that means a national farmer incubator. A national farmer incubator that is scalable so that we can address demographic level change. And in order for that incubator to be successful, I think it must do a couple of things very well. One of those is to streamline investment in new farmers. It's very difficult to start a farm, and it costs money. And we need to make sure that people who want to get into farming can access the finances and the financials necessary to buy land, buy equipment, get the seed. And second, we must create a new career path for those who want to get into farming. Accountants are not just born, okay, and neither are farmers. And so we must recreate this path so people who are curious can then become committed to farming, whether that's K through 12, secondary, post-secondary, vocational school, community college, technical school. We must do everything we can in our power to make it easier for people to return to the fields. And so I've been trying to do that now for the last 2 years on my own farm. I've leased extra land to other beginning farmers, and so I want to tell you the story about one of those guys. His name is Rob. This is Rob, right here, Rob. Rob came to me 2 years ago, and he wanted to start farming. And so I leased him a 1/4 acre of land so he could start growing small grains. And because he was leasing the land and renting the equipment, he could afford to do it even on a college student's budget. And I worked with him on his business plan to hone the numbers and individually to clarify his own vision for what he wanted out of farming. And finally, he was doing this in kind of a supportive community of other new farmers so that as we hit those inevitable bumps in the road, we were there to help each other out. And so while Rob's story is inspiring because this year he's farming on 60 acres of his own in western Minnesota, which is incredible, but Rob is still only one new farmer. And we need a lot more than one. So the question becomes, how do we go from one Rob to thousands of Robs? And for me, I think we can look for a perhaps surprising source for some ideas, fast food. The fast food franchise model allowed them to take what worked in one spot nationwide quickly. And so if we think about this national farmer incubator, and we think about having a chapter-based system that could both have a core central playbook that each chapter owner or operator could pull from, and it could be contextualized to local situations because we all know farming in Minnesota is different than farming in Texas, is different than New York, different than California. And so if we can do this, what's the math? How do we get to those big numbers I was talking about before? So you remember those? 95,000 farmers lost, and 91.5 million acres changing hands? What if we captured 10% of that available land? This is where we were before, 95,000 farmers lost, only 1,300 farmers gained. But with 10% of that available land, we could get 90,000 or more new farmers back on the landscape. And we would fill in this hole we've dug ourselves in for the last couple of years. But that's not enough. We have to do more if we truly want to create a new food system. We need many more people out on the landscape in order to do it. So let's get 25% of that available land. And let's put 220,000 new farmers back on our landscape. And imagine the impact that they would have. Imagine the impact of 220,000 new farmers producing healthy, fresh vegetables. Or imagine the impact of 220,000 new farmers in our rural communities, repopulating rural America. Or environmentally, 220,000 new stewards of our shared natural wealth. And finally, economically, 220,000 new small business owners driving right-sized prosperity for our communities and protecting us against an uncertain future by being diverse. And so I'm excited about trying to get here, and I think we all have a role we can play. Number one, we can all buy local. We can support the farmers we have today, and we should support them more. But we must go more than vote with our fork, do more than vote with our fork. We must begin to vote with our vote. And voting with our vote means supporting policies at the federal, state, and local levels that move us towards a better food system, that move us towards more farmers. Policies like the National Young Farmers Coalition's Farming is a Public Service, which seeks to add farming to the list of careers that people leaving college can go into to get their student loans forgiven. Careers such as firefighter and doctor and farmer all have public benefit. And locally, there's a whole slew of bills in front of our legislature right now to support farmers like me. And finally, one thing we all must do, whether we're an eater or whether we're a producer, whether we're a gardener or a farmer, or however you identify, we all have a shared responsibility to our shared food system. We owe it to ourselves and to each other and everyone in this room to be educated and engaged and active in our food system. And so for me, the trends are all pretty bad, right? The trends say that farmers in America are few and getting fewer, that they are old and getting older. But we do not have to accept that fate. Together, we can go out tomorrow morning and plant new seeds that will grow into 90,000 or 220,000 or more new farmers. And I believe if we do that, if we sow that next generation of American farmers, our collective future will reap the benefits. Thank you.